I want to talk about things that may actually help you. Maybe they will help you. I mean, I think typing shit into Pornhub and seeing whether or not that someone hits a home run highlights the fact that people look too much for that. Don't be in the business of predicting what's going to happen. No one's Nostradamus. I don't think of who's going to hit a home run today. I don't think in those terms. In DFS, you shouldn't be thinking about those terms. Why are we here after lock? Well, because I felt like bitching and moaning. Maybe teaching. Maybe having a teachable moment, Travis. Maybe we could have a teachable moment. NBA's already a shit show. So why not talk about MLB? I mean, it's the same concepts. I mean, people go into sports, into different fucking shit, and they think it's different. It's the same concept over and over and over again. Just you have to overlay the nuance of the sport over it. People get into predicting who's going to do well tonight in NBA. They get in the business of predicting who's going to get a touchdown, who's going to get over 100 yards rushing, or something like that. You shouldn't be thinking of what's going to happen. You should be thinking in terms of the probability of what's going to happen versus what the market thinks the probability is going to happen. That's what you should be thinking. I don't care what happens. I don't give a shit what happens. When I'm building lineups, I don't care. What does the market think the probability of something happening versus the price I'm getting for it? It's essentially that's what you're doing in GPPs. Because the ownership matters. If 50% of the people in the field think one team is going to fucking do great and they're stacking them, are they going to do well enough that you should own them at that market value? Yes, they're the more likely team. It's more likely to happen. Absolutely. But you're not getting paid enough for when it happens. I'd rather take the 3% owned team that has a 5% chance because at least I'm making expected value on it. That's the point. It's like when people are, it's more likely. I don't care about more likely. I care about how much I make when it happens. You could roll a 6-sided die. You could roll a 20-sided die. On the 6-sided die, I'll pay you 4-1 if you can guess what number comes out. On a 20-sided die, I'll pay you 100-1 on what number comes out. Yeah, you're only going to get it right 1 out of 20 times. This you'll get it right 1 out of 6 times. You'll get the 1 out of 6 more often, but you'll only get paid 4-1. The other one, you'll get less right, but you get paid more. If you did it 20 times, you make money. If you did it 6 times on the 6-sided die, you lose money. There you go. There's your fucking go. That's how you should be thinking. Like poker, right? That's why you think poker players tend to do well in DFS. Jesus. Where are you on BVP stats? No, there's no fucking BVP. BVP's worthless. MLB, I barely look at stats at all. At all. At all. Home away splits, I don't look at none of that shit. I don't look at OBA. I don't look at ISO. I don't look at K rate. I don't look at none of that. None of it. None of it. It's already in the projection. It's already in the price. It's already fucking determined. It's already valued. All you have to do is look at some decent enough projections. Decent. Sports Info Solutions. Get the fucking Cardi's the bat. Whatever the fuck it is. But you're not going by the little numbers. Well, this guy's 8.4 and this guy's 8.2. They're fucking insane. 8.4 and 8.2. The difference between those two is 5%. 5%. But the variance in baseball, the mean projection has like a 70% fucking range. It has a fucking ridiculous range. And a guy with an 8.4 projection could get 3 points for a single and be within the range of outcomes. He had 2 home runs. It's within the range of outcomes. So the difference of 5%, you're going to have one guy's going to be 20% owned, one guy's going to be 3% owned, that's 8.2. What the fuck? But it's already in there. Well, he's good against lefties. It's already in there. You're just doing redundant work by looking at other shit. Right? Well, it's a good ballpark. It's already in there. Don't even fucking look at it. It's already fucking in there. Thoughts on pitchers so far? Only one making it to the 8th inning. Well, pitchers, it depends on the pitcher. Depends on the coach. It depends on everything. If you look at a projection, it's already goddamn in there. It's already fucking in there anyway. I'm more likely in GPP to take a pitcher that's going to pitch longer. If there's any risk that they're going to come out after 80 pitches, I'm less likely. It depends on the salary. Guy's 5,000. That's a different story. It also depends on how popular the pitcher's going to be. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, the salary and the ownership. I don't care. You can tell me the guy's going to only pitch 4 innings, but he's 3,000, and no one's going to have him. And by doing so, there's no other cheap pitcher worth taking, so everyone's taking more expensive pitchers, and now I could fucking build whatever goddamn stack I want. Okay, we've made a fucking situation where you can take a pitcher that's only going to pitch 4 innings. But he can only get 12 points, but he's 4,000. Maybe that's worthwhile. But once you say he's 12% owned, then maybe you don't take him. What about dome versus outdoor games in early spring? If you're looking at projections, it's already in there. It's already fucking in there. Just fucking, it's already in there. It's already been factored in. The only thing that you have to, if you're gonna use a projection source, which I would suggest, I don't poo-poo projections. I poo-poo using the point numbers as one guy's 8.73 and one guy's 8.56. Obviously, the other guy's the greatest play in the world. I don't believe in any of that shit. I look at projections for every sport. And I look at different sets of projections. And I need to know what projection set factors in what information. Certain projections don't factor in weather. Certain projections don't factor in ballpark. Certain projections, sometimes I want to weed out things that I don't want to weigh as much. I want to have neutral, nothing. I want to, don't factor in the umpire, don't factor, and see what the difference is. If there's a big enough difference, maybe I do that. The main thing that I want to get right is the ownership. If I can nail the ownership, then I can make good decisions. I don't want to take stacks that okay, it's worthwhile to take it 10%, but not really as worthwhile to take it 18%. If I can get it under 18% or something, these specific people, sure, okay, I'll do it. But if I think that it's going to be over 18%, maybe I take a part of the stack that is going to be less owned. If I see 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to be efficiently owned, maybe I take 2, 3, 4, 5 because the 5th hitter is going to be 6% owned instead of 12% owned, and go, okay, I want that stack, but I'll be differentiated that way. Telling you in some cash games these Roto-Raider lineups are so egregious. I'm not even talking about MLB cash games at this point. I primarily play GPP in MLB. I'll play cash games in other sports, but I primarily play GPP. But I will play probably a month from now. Maybe I'll dabble in some cash shit, right? But people are looking at projections. Now, if you don't have projections, if you have no fucking clue in the world, then you got to piece shit together. Okay, then maybe it makes some sense that you got to fucking start weighing shit on your own. But most of the time, you can just fucking look at some base mean projection that factors in most of it. May not have the umpire data, may not have the ballpark factor, may not have the bullpen situation. It may not factor. A lot of them just change it by very small points anyway. But if you're already looking, if you're okay, I got a projection source that factors in these 26 things, these 84 things, looking at it and go, well, I already factored it in. Now let me look at it again. It makes no sense to me. Why are you doing it? It's already there. The guy has a projection of 7.63. That already factors in all that other shit. So you go, but he's against a fly ball pitcher. That's a better play than someone else at 7.63. No, it was already factored in. It was already factored in that the pitcher has a 40% fly ball rate. That he only strikes out at 17%. That he gives up 2 walks a game on that. It's already in there. If it wasn't for that, the 7.3 projection would have been a 6.98 projection. It's already in there. So what's the point of looking at anything? I don't even understand. Weather. A lot of times weather isn't in there. So maybe I'll look at some weather. I'm looking for things that may affect the ceiling of the score. Not the median, not the mean. I don't care about that for GPPs. Oh, the bullpen is all tired from yesterday. Now, that's already going to be factored into the fucking projection, probably, depending on your source. But it's like, if this starting pitcher gets blown up in fucking 2 innings, that's going to be fucking got tired arms in the bullpen also. That may affect the ceiling more. So you look at those types of things. Those types of things that you may want to wait a little bit more because you think the ceiling is towards the part of that. I like to pick on pitchers that walk a lot of batters, typically. Now, it doesn't mean they walk a lot of batters in this specific game that's coming up, but it's much more likely that a stack is going to be more valuable as the guy starts putting guys on base. More opportunities for runs and RBIs and big innings. A ground ball pitcher that pitches to contact that doesn't walk anyone, they may give up a lot of hits and a lot of singles and shit, but maybe not a big inning. They're not getting runners on all the time. They're just, grounding it to, double play, fly ball, sac fly. Not really ceiling type of results. But it's already factored in. Now, all that is still factored in the projection, but I'm like, okay, they're factoring that this guy's going to walk 2.5 batters. Let's say there's an outlier game and this guy walks fucking 5 guys. Well, now if I put in, pretend the guy walks 5 guys, all those projections start going fucking up. Like if you have your own system with Solver or whatever, you can do that. But I mean, there's no point in looking at projections and then starting to look at the stats that are already in the projections. They're already in there. It's not doing you any good. It's already factored in there. All I'm looking at now is, okay, here are the projections. Here's what's factored in. I already know all of that. Then I'm going, okay, these guys seem to be value. You do point per dollar value, and you go, okay, and typically like what everyone can see with the naked eye is probably going to be the popular stack anyway. The Cubs against the fucking whatever in Texas. Like, I could have told you that without looking at anything. But now I'm looking at it, it's like, is the ownership worth doing that? It doesn't mean you don't take them, because in baseball, you don't have to take all guys. You could combine the popular stack with some fucking unknown fucks. And there, you win. I mean, you could do it that way also. So you don't have to avoid the chalky stacks. You could pair a chalk stack with a garbage, with the fucking 3% owned bullshit, and you could win that way. With a one-off, and it gets 3 home run game in the 8th spot in some other game. It's hard to predict that shit. That's what you should be looking at. The Dodgers the other night. I had tons of it. I had more of the Dodgers than anyone else. I combined them. I had Cubs also. Of course, you get lucky. You get the positional player coming in throwing a fucking batting practice for two innings. But those guys, like the projected ownership, they were going to be like the 5th, 6th most popular stack. You had guys in there that were 8%. Justin Turner was like 9% owned. Well, probably because he's third base eligible and Chris Bryant takes up that spot. And he's going to be chalk. Corey Seager, you have Javier Baez, you have all the Cubs guys filling in spots that the Dodgers could be in. Then I'm taking the Brewers, and they were a little bit more owned than I thought they were going to be. But that's all I'm looking at. I'm looking at, okay, is the Cubs stack 3 times more likely to do well than the Dodgers stack? No. Right? I look at this Dodgers stuff and see 9%, 11%, 15% at the most. And I see the Cubs hovering around 30. I go, yes, the Cubs are going to be more likely to do well in that spot. But not twice as more likely than the Dodgers, maybe 15% more likely. So that means when the Dodgers do well, which they did, I get paid much more for it than taking the Cubs and them doing well. If I did everything and I put everything chalky together, I got everything right and min cashed. I mean, I got everything right and came in 174th at my best lineup. Because everyone else had a lot. I mean, it was popular. Most of it was popular. I'm looking off the beaten path. Doesn't mean I'm going to fucking, taking the fucking Giants or some bullshit, taking the bottom of the Giants order. I'm not doing that. If it was a Millie Maker or something, maybe you'd take a shot at that shit, maybe. But, I mean, you don't have to go to that extreme. But that's how you should be playing. That's why you have people spend 5 hours doing MLB research, and I'm like, I don't even know what would I spend 5 hours doing? I spend more time organizing my lineups and getting the right pieces in. Like on DraftKings, I may do 5-3 or a 4-4 or a 4-3-1. Making sure that, I have as much correlation and also not as much overlap. I don't like making 50 lineups and then seeing that 4 of my lineups is essentially a 1v1 on hitter and a different pitcher. I'm like, nah, I pretty much have the same stack. So instead of, if it's a 4-3-1, I'm like, can I change one of the 4 to something else? So I have that pitcher and not, I'm doing more of that shit. Trying to figure out what stacks to use and what, weaves together, puzzle-wise. So a lot of times that's what I'll look at. A lot of times I'm looking at it and going, who's the chalk stack? What are their positions? And what positions are not being covered? And where can I get the leverage? On the position first. And then look and go, well, if I could play Corey Seager, and then I could play Justin Turner, well, they're 2-3 in the order. So now I'm looking going, those are great leverage positional spots. So what's the stack? And I go Jock Peterson and fucking play Corey Bellinger. There you go. I mean, two outfield. I mean, there you go. The stack built itself. It's not complicated. You have to make those decisions. There's no correct decision. There's just a multitude of decisions you could possibly make. You build MLB lineups by hand. Typically, if I'm playing the mid to high stakes GPPs, like the single entry stuff, like the $100, $50 single entry, that type of shit, I'll make those lineups by hand. All the other lineups, because I'll play the 20 max, and I'll play 20 lineups into that. The $10, whatever the main GPP is, I'll probably play 20 lineups into that. I'll play the $5 3 max. I'll throw that into my pool. I tried the $12 single entry. I'll throw that into. I mean, I typically hand make 3 or 4 lineups a night, but the rest I'm putting into an optimizer. But I'm selecting my player pool. I'm selecting my stacks. I'm selecting the percentage of my pool is which stack and how my primary stacks and my secondary stacks. So my primary stacks will typically be 4 players. So before I want all 4. I'll have I want 1 to 5. I want 4 of them. And I want 30% of that on one side. And then another team, I may have 30% of that. Same thing, 1 to 5 or whatever, 2 to 6. I may skip a guy, who knows? Or you make 4s of that, and then on the other side, I'll have 3s and 4s on the other of different teams. And then I'll have one-offs. That's why it's I'll have 4, 3, and then I'll have other people in the player pool that are just one player from a team. And those just fit wherever they fit. Typically, I'll automatically throw Mike Trout into my player pool and go, if whatever lineups he fits in, he ends up fitting in. Sometimes he's in 3 lineups. And I'm like, okay. It fits in, and there's no guy that could fit in there that fits from the other stacks, then whatever it is, Mookie Betts, whatever the fuck it happens to be. So there you go. And then you just throw those, but you have to decide what stacks and what players in the stacks that you want to go. And I do it based on, position. Because I look and I go, okay, I like this guy, want this stack. Oh, if this stack's going to be this low owned, I want pieces of this. And I look and I put stuff together, and it turns out I only have 2 second basemen. I go and I go, okay, I've picked 31 players, and I have 2 second basemen. Do I really want 50% of this and 50% of this guy? No. So either I look for another stack or I look for a second baseman one-off. I'm like, let me just throw Jose Altuve in there. I'm not playing the Astros, but I don't mind Altuve as a fucking one-off or some bullshit. So I just throw it in there, and if it happens to be in 5 lineups, then whatever the fuck it is. That's what I'm doing. You have to make those decisions. I want to know what the projected ownership is on these things, and give me what's the probability in baseball. The variance is so fucking high, yet people act like sure things happen. People act like, oh, he's obviously going to hit a home run tonight. No, you don't know. You don't fucking know. Does Labs project ownership for MLB? I don't. Well, if they do, it's probably not good. they do poor job in NBA, so I ain't gonna trust them in fucking. Labs is probably best for football, more so. NBA is okay. MLB, I don't know. I look at them, but they factor in a whole bunch of shit, and you have to do sliders for your model. I typically look at Sports Information Solutions and the BAT for my projections, and then the mean, like the public projections. They're typically not ridiculously off from one another. They're typically not that far off. But you have to know what goes into them. Once you know what goes into the projection, you don't have to look at those things anymore. They're already in there. That's why you get into fucking conversations in chat rooms. Well, what's his ISO versus lefties outside in 70 degrees? It's fucking in there. Like that, whatever number you're looking at already fucking factors that in. So why are we talking about it? Why do you look at the difference between, well, do you want to play, the stacks are expensive. You go, okay, the Red Sox are going to, they have the highest team total, but like the highest team total in Benintendi is 4,900 and Betts is 5,600 and Devers is now up to 4,800 and JD Martinez is 5,400. Like, you better be fucking certain about that shit, and you better hope there isn't pitching to pay up for. It's like, oh, how do I take 4 Red Sox hitters and pay over $21,000 for them, and then not be able to play any stud pitchers? Well, the Red Sox better score fucking 12 runs at those prices. I look for the cheap shit. I look for, is there a guy in like batting 3rd or 4th that just like moved up in the order, or is there a guy that was normally 7th that now is batting 2nd? So his price, if he was batting 2nd, probably should be 4,300, but it's actually 3,500. Makes them good cash plays. Typically, you'll find them in cash games. But then I look and I go, it now decreases the price of the stack, which means I can take more risk of playing that stack. When you take the Red Sox, when you go, I'm going to take Stanton, Judge, Sanchez, when you're going to do that for the Yankees, you need a higher probability of that, all of that hitting, because you're paying the price for it. If you're paying cheap ass stack, if you're playing, cheap, now the Padres aren't even cheap anymore. You're going to pay kind of a lesser team. I'm not saying you have to take the shittiest team. You take a look and you go, well, this guy's a decent pitcher, but he's not the greatest of pitchers. That's why I thought about Zach Godley. It's like Godley wasn't someone that I wanted to pick on, but it's not like he was a good pitcher. Right? He's not really that much of a strikeout pitcher. He can get strikeouts. He's facing 2 tough lefties at the top of the order. And no one seems to want to play the Dodgers. Everyone's going to the Cardinals and everyone's going to the Cubs. I'm like, what prevents them from doing well? For them being 10% owned each. But you tell me they're 17% owned, I probably don't fucking play them. You told me they're 17% owned, maybe I take a Jock Peterson one-off. Maybe I take a Bellinger one-off. Maybe I throw Seager as a one-off in my shortstop pool or some bullshit. So that's the decision making. That's the probabilistic thinking. I'm not going into a slate going, who's going to do well? Who's going to hit a home run? I look to see what's the market think. Based on the point that they seem too cheap for playing in that park and against that shit pitcher. They say, but most of the time the market sees that also. So I'm like, okay, so is the market being efficient? Or is it being inefficient? Either by too many people or too little people. Sometimes you'll see it. Sometimes you'll see the chalky stack really not be like on an 11-game slate, not be that owned. But I'm saying if on an 11-game slate with 22 teams to choose from, if you see a stack with guys that are 25 to 30% owned, I just won't play it. There's too much variance for me to play a 30% owned player as a part of a stack, not as a one-off, but as part of like a 4-man stack. And I see 30%, 28%, 23%, and 20%. What's the chance that all of them have to perform in order for me to hit a GPP winning score? And they're owned by so many goddamn people. So, like, even if that does come in, like, okay, still a third of the field has it, practically. I'd rather just hope it fails and just a third of the liners just get thrown in the garbage. Because the stack fails if one of them fails. You take you take the top order of the Red Sox or some bullshit, and Mookie Betts goes 0 for 4, you're dead. You're done. You're not going to be able, an outfielder at 5,500 with a 0, you ain't winning a GPP. So it doesn't matter that Benintendi hit a home run. It doesn't matter that JD Martinez hit a home run. It doesn't matter that Devers has a stolen base and then went 2 for 4. You probably ain't winning. You got a 0 right there in your score. You're going to try to win a 20,000 person fucking GPP, you're dead. So that's what I mean by this stuff. Like, but if you took a JD Martinez 1-all, and he's the only one of that stack that has 20 points and everyone else is garbage, that's all you need. And he could hit it on one swing of the bat. So those are typically my 1-offs. What site does the best job of projecting ownership in your opinion? They're all around. I use RotoGrinders. I use RotoGrinders for most of my stuff in general. But I don't take it as gospel. You look and you can, all you need is just a general sense. I don't look at 12% to go, well, if it's 14%, it's like it's a general. I'm looking at it in relation to one another. I could look and go, okay, all the Cubs are at the top. They're going to be higher up. Then underneath that, okay, I see Angels there. Okay, I get a sense. But I mean, a lot of times you can sense that in general. And a lot of times you can project ownership just by the positional spot. You have to have these certain positions. You have to. So if one guy is going to be, if Anthony Rizzo is going to be fucking 40%, he's going to be the most popular first baseman, it's going to reduce the ownership of all the other first basemen. We say the same shit. I've said the same shit in NBA. Oh, here are 2 popular centers. So obviously all these other centers are going to be low owned. Because you have to fit someone in there. And if everyone's using this guy in that slot and you can't, like, if you play Javier Baez and Corey Seager, it's like you can't play both of them. They're both only shortstop eligible. So the more the ownership goes on one side, the more, I mean, obviously there's some multi-positional players that are eligible 2 positions. But you can judge that for yourself. That's why you can tell a lot of times the ownership. I think too many people are playing Rizzo and Bryant, so I'm going to play Travis Shaw. He's first base and third. It fits in. Brewers seem to be in a fine spot. Hudson couldn't, isn't a strikeout pitcher. They're power bats. I don't even have to play Milwaukee stack. But I mean, I like 3-4-5. Give me 3-4-5. Throw a little 3-4-5 in there. And then also, I'll take Moustakas and Shaw, and because they fill slots that I only have like 3 players in. Like I need another second baseman. So just throw in Moustakas, and if he comes in a 1-off, then so be it. Let it fucking go. Grandal batting 4th as a catcher. That's easy. He was the chalk anyway. So just throw him in. Like that. That's it. I mean, like what is it? What is it that's so complicated? Unless the people that fucking watch this shit already fucking, I'm just fucking yelling at a brick wall. I have no idea. This is what I mean by I don't look. This is the process I do in every fucking sport. And when you think of, if you're going to think past the projection, think in terms of ceiling results. I don't need to know the difference between one person's ISO and this person's ISO. As long as you know generally about the players, I know the 9th hitter. I know a guy that's hit 3 home runs in his career for 7 years is not a power hitter. I need to know his ISO is fucking .042. It's fucking low as shit. Like I don't even know the differences of that. That's why you get all these fucking players. Who's getting smashed today? What's the stack of the day? There's a losing players. This shit is obvious, but why tell people? People want to know. People ask for my help all the time. But typically they're asking for my help on who to play. I tell them I'm not your butler. Fucking play your own goddamn lineups. I get DMs. Can you help me out? Tip? Would you play this guy with this pitcher in this park? I'm like, you can fucking play whoever you want. You're not asking the right questions. You have to determine that shit for yourself. Or do you think this guy's gonna strike out 8 guys? Do you think this guy's gonna hit a home run? Fucking, I don't know. I'm not a fucking fortune teller. If you think he's going to hit, if you think he's going to do well, more so than the ownership that he's currently at, then fucking take him. If you can find other people around him in the correlatively, so you can take 3 or 4 guys from that batting order that are around each other, then fucking do it. What do you have to ask me for? Fucking, you don't need my permission. Go fucking do it. Not that complicated. I think Aaron Judge is hitting one out today. Then fucking take him. How many other people think this? Well, I think 35% of people will have him. Then fucking more likely he's not going to hit home run. So fucking why are you taking him? Oh, only 10% of people are going to have him. Then fucking take him. So my answer changes depending on what your ownership. Do you tell me what the ownership is? So what's the point of me asking? Why are you asking me? Makes no sense. So you have any questions? Other than fucking what's for dinner? This isn't complicated. This is how you play the game. Just play the game. I didn't know the Dodgers were going to do well the last night. I fucking no clue. But if they did well, I get them at 10% on a 6-game slate where the Cubs are fucking massive chalk. And I had the Cubs. So it's not like I didn't have them. I had plenty of Cubs. I had Cubs and Dodgers. I had Cubs, Dodgers, Brewers. A little bit of Red Sox. And there you go. The correlative value of, I mean, we all know that in baseball. So do you have to explain correlation? You stack up points. Guy gets a hit. This guy gets a double. Then this guy scores, so you get the points for the run. Then the RBI, and it all goes around like that. That's why you stack in baseball. That's obvious. What do you typically cap a low and stack at? Let's say you say really like a 5% stack. You could whatever your risk tolerance is. I have my personally. You could do it. There's no correct answer here, really. I'm more likely to have a narrower core of players. I want to optimize for when I'm right. Like we said before, I'm not predicting the performance. But if I'm right, I have multiple outs in order to win. I hate the worst thing to me at least, the worst thing that could happen is for me to have a player pool that's too wide where I'm only playing 50 to 60 lineups where I could make legitimately hundreds of lineups. And the winning lineup would have been a lineup that's in my player pool. But because I wanted to include extra people, that lineup just happened to not get made. And I have a couple of duds. Because I wanted to get a 1 off of this guy and a 1 off of that guy. And I wanted to throw in 10% of this stack. Just for no fucking reason. And then fucking everything happens the way I want. And I got I have an outfielder with 7 points instead of what could have been an outfielder with 23 points that was in my fucking pool anyway. So that's why I try to keep it condensed. So if there's a 5% stack, I mean, I could be 5-6 times the field. I have no problem whatsoever. There are many times in baseball where there's a stack like a 2, 1, 2, 4, 5 something, 2, 3, whatever the hell, a 4-man stack, and it's like 12% owned guy, 8% owned guy, 10% owned guy, 14 like somewhere aggregate around 8 to 10%. It's like the 7th most popular stack or some bullshit. And I have it in half my lineups. I just say, fuck it. If I'm right on this, I'm playing all my secondary stacks. And I got some short secondary stacks. I'm like, I'm going to put my eggs in this basket. Because I see the leverage play there, and I don't see as good leverage plays other places. And I go, I don't know why they're going to be that low owned, but they should be at least double that. The efficient ownership should be double that. And they're not. I'm going to take advantage. I'll jump on that. A stack that's going to be, let's say, a stack that's going to be 16% owned, that should be 19% owned, is not as much leverage. So for me to take, for a 19, let's say a stack efficiently owned would be 20%. They're 15% owned. Like for me to take an overweight position on efficiency, I would have to have 30, 40% of that. Am I comfortable with that? I'm more comfortable with 30% of a 5% owned stack because at least I get 6x the leverage on that. So if I'm right, I got all these outs. I'm up. I got lineups that are in like, towards the end of the night, you see lineups that are in 4th, 8th, 64th, 72nd. Like it's just all, and it's just like, I hope the opposite stack that I got or the one off there, I optimize for those situations. There's some players that have a wider portfolio strategy. They're playing 150 lineups, and they're like, yeah, they're not playing everyone, but they're playing 7 pitchers. They're playing 8 stacks, and then just running it through like that. And they're condensed stacks at least. Typically, it's not like they have 4, and it's always going to be those 4. But if you're wrong on one of the people in the stack, you're dead. But it's only in 15% of their lineup. So they got 15% of this, 15% of that, 15% of this, 20% of that. But you're spending more money to enter your contest. So, I mean, now you're spending, it's $1,500 for a $10 contest for 150 lineups. I'll play 50 lineups, sometimes even less. I'll hand make lineups. I mean, in the mid stakes. But I'll make 50 lineups. I'll make 50 lineups with 3 pitchers. That's it. Sometimes 4. On a 10-game slate. If I get the fucking pitchers right, got tons of outs. And if I'm wrong, then it's just tomorrow. Tomorrow's another day. I want to optimize my highest return for when I'm right. I don't want to go a whole fucking season where the highest I've come in is like 11th place, and I've come in 11th and 18th and 9th like 5 or 6 times, but I could have won one of those for 50K to 100K if it wasn't for the fact that that lineup that came in 8th just happened to have the fucking 3.1 off, rather than just the other guy from fucking someone else. The 20-point spring or something. Or just have the wrong pitcher there. Like I picked fucking 5 pitchers, and 2 of them were duds. And they're around the same price. It just so happens that the lineup created that's in 8th place has the pitcher with 4 points in it. When I had the same price pitcher and another would have had 24 points. It would have won me the whole fucking... But if I kept it narrow, I'm optimizing for that. Stats matter for MLB cash to find underpriced players. GPPs are a different construction with upside. Yeah, cash is a little bit different. But cash, everything's factoring the projections anyway. You're looking more for opportunities. It's the same thing as in any other sport. In NBA, minutes equal money. Baseball, at bats equal money. How many pitchers, how many typically you pull for, say, 40 lineups? I just said. Depends on how many pitchers are worthwhile to take. Depends on who's chalky, how much they're owned, that type of shit. Pitchers a little bit, I mean, it's still high variance, but pitchers a little bit more reliable. It also depends on the price of the pitcher versus what stacks I can have. If I see ownership of 2 higher priced pitchers, that means I have to expect that the ownership of lower priced stacks to be higher, because that's the only way you can fit those fucking people in. Sometimes the ownership on the pitching in GPP is going to be, people are going to play DeGrom and play this garbage 6K pitcher, or someone down that range. And how does that affect your construction? But a lot of times in like 40, it may only be 4 pitchers. Because how many stack combinations could you have? I mean, like, I could pick 5 stacks, and I mean, I can make 50 lineups easily like that just with 2 pitchers. So now if I have a 3rd pitcher, like now that's triple my combinations. If I have 4 pitchers, that's 6 times the combinations. So I can't have a million. I don't want to nail the hitters and then have too many pitchers. And I also don't want to nail the pitchers and not have it fucking, I'm playing 80% I'm playing fucking 3 stacks and that's it. And 50 lineups. You have to make a choice at some point. How many teams do I typically stack on a given night? On a 10-game slate? It really depends on what's available. Typically, I'm aiming for around 5. I'm typically aiming for 2 primary stacks. 2 stacks where on DraftKings at least, the FanDuel, you can do 4-4 with one pitcher. On DraftKings, I like if I can find 2 stacks that I can play 5 batters from. I may not play a 5-3. I only 20% of my lineups may be a 5-man stack. But at least I want to find 5 people in the batting order to take 4 of from. So let's say I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Some shit. The 5th hitter doesn't have the platoon advantage or some bullshit. So I don't, or the position I already have covered and I don't want him or whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So I can do 1, 2, 3, 4. I can do 2, 3, 4, 6. I can do 1, 3, 4, 6. I can make all those combinations of 4 players. And maybe in some lineups I have all 5. But typically on DK I try to make like 4-4, 4-3-1 type stacks in general. But I don't mind the 5-man stacks. Just it depends. It depends on how it comes out. But the main thing is ownership. That's the main thing. I don't care who's going to do well today. I'm not a fortune teller. I care what the market thinks. What does the market think? And especially in a sport that is so high variance. You can play this to fucking golf also. NBA, there's less variance. NBA actually play whatever you want. There's some limit to that. And there's less correlation. NFL even. There's less variance in NFL. MLB, Jesus Christ. Yeah, most likely than not, Trout's going to hit a home run today. But you don't know what fucking day it is, and he can fucking not. I mean, and if a quarter of the field is going to have him, he's going to hit a home run a quarter of the time, right? I mean, if he hits 40 home runs in a year, that's a quarter of the games. So if he's 25% owned, that's a fish. Why do I need him? It doesn't matter if I have him or not. It doesn't matter if it's efficient ownership. It doesn't matter if I have him or not. It's not going to give me any leverage or lose me any leverage. And the variance of him hitting a home run or having a good score, whatever, is fucking wide. So that's why you look, I think probabilistically, you look at matchups in baseball, and you go, well, I'm probably going to avoid playing this, against an ace pitcher. I'm probably going to avoid this situation. I try to look at the middling situations. I'm looking at it's an 11-game slate, and there's probably 3 or 4 games where you could just write them off. Where it's like, no, I'm not playing that team against Sale. This ballpark, this lineup, shitty offense, not cheap enough. You could throw that out. But then you get like 8 teams together where everyone can identify like the first and second, and you can tell by how popular they are. But then the rest, that third through the 6th and 7th, people bubble up. People like that third stack or whatever ends up getting a little bit too high ownership, and these other teams go down. And really, the difference between them is not that dramatic. So even the chalk stack, you have a chalk stack at 20+% owned, and the next stack is 15% owned, and the next stack is 12% owned. The 12% stack, the difference of 8% between that it's almost double. No stack at that level is twice as more likely to go off for a ceiling result. As a median, more points together, sure, but you're not looking for the more points. Than if you take the chalk stack and you get 9 points here and 12 points there and 6 points here and 10 points there, and that combines for a decent score, and that median-wise is fine, you're not going to win a GPP that way in a big field contest with those small. You need the whole fucking lineup to go off. So you're telling me that one thing is twice as more likely? No, can't be. Can't possibly be. So I'm looking for those situations. So I'm not going to pretend. I don't care if the Dodgers. Did I know that was going to happen and they scored 18 runs? No, it's in the range of outcomes, but the Cubs could have scored 18 runs. Right? So the Brewers could have scored 18. It could have been could have been any of them. Could have happened. You blow up a pitcher in the first inning. It could have happened. It could have been the Rangers. Yu Darvish he was walking everyone under the sun. Could have been the Rangers. Now, the Cubs, more likely than the Rangers, more likely than the Dodgers, but using the terms, human beings don't understand that, like, more likely doesn't mean, like, 17 times more likely. More likely can mean 7% more likely. Like, yes, it's more likely, but not by dramatic amount. But then everyone rushes to that. Everyone rushes. You see that in NFL or whatever. Oh, this guy's 5,600. The starting running back's out. It's still a committee there. And everyone just assumes he's getting all the carries. Just assumes. 40% owned. With no information. We're guessing now. And he's, who knows? 40% owned. What's the probability? Is that too high of a probability? You're probably right. 5,600 is probably a little too cheap for the probability of him being the bell cow back of that week or whatever bullshit. Probably is. But let's say he was going to be in 70% of lineups, and it's still ambiguous. And he's not like it's 3,500. It's not like his minimum price. And you go look, and you go, maybe in GPP it's better to fade there. Not because everyone owns them. What people get wrong is go, oh, this guy's going to be too high owned. I'm going to fade for ownership. Like, no, fade because the probability of hitting our ceiling result is lower than the projected ownership. If you get a guy, like in basketball, if James Harden is mispriced at 5,000, I'd put him in 100% of lineups, even if he told me 100% of people have him. The probability of James Harden failing to get a 7x score plus or whatever at 5K is like, his probability is like 98% at 5,000. So I don't even need to know ownership at that point. You tell me he's only going to be 87% owned, and I'll think it's a deal. Now, if Harden is 12,000, that's a different story. That's why the salary and the ownership matters. That's what should guide your decisions, not who's going to hit a home run today. No one knows that. How do I treat Coors for GPP? I typically fade Coors. I would say I fade Coors more than if you were to say it's quite possible this year I may fade Coors every time. Because it inflates ownership unnecessarily. Yes, it's the most likely spot. You're absolutely right. The prices typically reflect it. The projections reflect it. And it gets overowned. I'm more likely to play Coors where there's a good pitcher in Coors, where it'll decrease the ownership. Or if there's some fucking gas can in some other game that people also want to play. Maybe it'll depress ownership at Coors Field. But the ballpark factor is already factored into the projections anyway, so what the fuck do I care? That's the game. That's how you play. That's the game. That's what I do in NBA. That's what I do in NFL. That's what I do in fucking every sport. Soccer, I fucking Glenn Murray. He didn't fucking score a goal, but got him at 12% ownership. Fucking anyone could have scored that fucking slate before. I'll take a shot on him. Took Vardy, took Murray in GPP. Paired him up with all the good plays. Contests aren't that big. So I don't have to go nuts. High-powered offense like the Dodgers on a Coors day that ends 2-1 is right. There you go, NBA talk. But only because it's going to be inflated ownership. It was efficient ownership. Okay, fine. But so many people flock to Coors. Arenado, gotta play Charlie Blackmon, gotta play whoever the fuck the away team is. Typically the prices have come up. And people are stacking. And then you start seeing these Coors stacks on it's a 13-game slate. And Coors Field bats are 20% owned. And then I just if Coors goes up, then I lose today. Then fine. But on a 13-game slate for these two teams to be that owned, fucking, you'll never see me play them. How often do I stack good hitters that are facing a good pitcher? Not often. Because I typically want to stack in GPP. I'll possibly take a good hitter as a one-off, a power hitting one-off against a good pitcher, because that'll deflate ownership. But it depends on the options that you have available. Typically, I'm doing that. I'm typically doing like stacking against a good pitcher, not necessarily even an ace pitcher, but a good on the slate. They'd actually be the chalk pitcher. Like think of a slate where it's not Scherzer, where it's a good pitcher, and they're going to be the chalky pitcher, but they're not like an ace. I may take bats against them, especially when there's not many good options, where there's no obvious plays, there's no obvious stacks, because people are going to avoid that naturally and go, well, I guess I'll take this team again. Like the ownership is kind of spread out. Then I'll take a shot. Because there I want that ownership leverage of people not wanting to stack against the pitcher that they're playing. This typically happens when there's not an ace pitcher. There's just good pitchers. Not shitty pitchers, but like a good pitcher that's like 10-8 or something. They're the most expensive pitcher, and they're 10-5 or something, but they're not a great pitcher. They're good. I wouldn't want to attack them. But there's no gas cans, there's no obvious stacks that I want to play that will be chalky. People will settle on their favorite stacks, but typically it won't be the one where they're playing the pitcher. Because I need to get something that I know, so I'll take the 10-5 pitcher. That's what I'm playing. The 3 to 4 man stack against that pitcher. So you get more leverage there. When there's a stack that's going to be 30% owned, it's easy to find leverage everywhere. When there's everything spread out, it's hard to find leverage. So the most leverage you'll ever find on any slate is to stack against the chalk pitcher. Not against the ace pitcher, the chalk pitcher. So if there's going to be a pitcher that's 40% owned, those bats are going to be low owned, no matter what. And if that's the best place to find leverage because all the ownership is spread out, then maybe I go there. Especially if they have good bats. But they strike out a lot. But maybe he doesn't got his stuff and he gives up 4 home runs. Fucking happens. Do you think Coors is actually an edge then? It's all it is ownership leverage. There's no Coors edge. You see it in every sport. Centers against the Nets. All of a sudden, whoever's the center against the Nets has 4 to 5% more ownership than they probably should have. It's the same type of shit. The recency bias. Oh, revenge narrative. It views the same way. Yes, the ballpark, that's the best ballpark factor in Major League Baseball. It's already incorporated in their projections, so you get a look at it. But people will just gravitate towards it. Yes, they should. Those stacks probably should be the highest owned. But you're not. There's a difference between being the highest owned at 18% and being the highest owned at 28% or at 36% on a 13-game slate. On a 5-game slate, yeah, everyone's going to be owned. But on a 10-game, 11-game slate, Coors Field's going to get that much owned. It's inflated. They'll still be the highest owned stack. If you see the highest owned stack, Coors is going to be 18% owned, and that's the highest stack, and the next stack is 14%, that's not inflated ownership. But we really, typically, from my experience in MLB, once Coors Field is on the slate, it's going to be over-owned. So that's why I typically don't play it. And I wait for everyone to tilt when it's a fucking 3-1 game. When you reference a ceiling outcome for MLB, is there a particular point total you're looking for? Home run plus. I mean, I'm looking for a ceiling out for the whole stack, generally. Typically, double digits minimum. I mean, typically. But scoring on a slate is all relative. I mean, we see that in every sport. If the chalk fails, the cash lines are going to be lower. If the chalk hits, the cash lines are going to be higher. If all the pitchers fail, I mean, it's going to be lower. If every pitcher, scores at least 15 points, then it's going to be higher. So I don't have a target score. But that's what I'm saying. I'm not predicting what's going to happen. Like, what's the score? Do I think Justin Turner's going to get 12 points? I don't fucking know. No fucking clue. I'm taking a stack because I'm stacking the team against the pitcher. I'm taking probably the best hitters on the team. So I'm going, what's the probability of the Dodgers scoring 8 runs today? Because if they score 8 runs, probably at 70% of the time, these hitters will probably have done well in that environment. To me, that's all I'm doing. That's why my primary stacks, I'm trying to take 5 guys from. Sometimes 6. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll take 6 guys, but not in one line. I'll take 4 out of the 6 and different combinations of 4. So if I get the team right, I have a lot of outs to fucking win a GPP. But I want that team to be a team I want to get leverage. I don't necessarily want the team to be 3% owned, but I want it to be under-owned. I want to have 2, 3, 4 times the weight overweight, so that when I'm right, I have tons of shots at first place of a GPP in a sport that has so high variance that it's fucking horrible to come in 8th when you had people in your player pool that you could have had in there if it wasn't for the fact that you tried to play too many people. He's saying he'll efficiently... Yeah, that's right. Now, of course, it's inefficiently priced, and fuck you, I may play him anyway. Maybe the ownership is worth playing if they're inefficiently priced. What I'm always saying is that you need to know what's factored into the salaries that the sites put out with. You also need to know what's factored into the projections that you're looking at, if you're looking at projections. The salaries have already reflected the situation. They price up the Coors bats and they price down the Coors pitchers like those are efficient. Nolan Arenado at 5,800 at Coors Field seems actually probably a little overpriced, but people will stack him. Charlie Blackmon at 5,500 or some bullshit. Yeah. When they're at a Coors Field, they should be 4,700. I mean, they're efficiently priced. So if someone's efficiently priced, the only way I'll play efficiently priced players is if they're going to be under-owned. If they're inefficiently priced, I still want to play them at less than efficient ownership. But the ownership could be higher. I have no problem playing a guy in 100. We saw NBA. Kyrie Irving's out. Terry Rozier is in, and he's 3,700. I have him at 100% of my lines because his efficient price is like 6,000 plus in that scenario. It's an obvious so underpriced that you don't even have to tell me what the ownership is. It's not efficient ownership. The ownership should be 100%. The Coors bats are never going to be that low where, oh, wow, everyone's priced in the low 3,000s. Like, it doesn't happen. And if that did happen, maybe, well, they're all in the 3,000 range, and they're all going to be 60% owned. Maybe it's still worth it to fucking play them. I mean, baseball high variance, it probably still isn't. How do you stay consistent in MLB DFS when it's a failing sport? Embracing the variance. That's the core of what I'm talking about. Embracing the variance. If you're going to go, I'm going to play the chalk every day. If you go play the chalk, if you play MLB, and if you're playing efficiently priced players at over ownership, over the course, if you ran this out a million times, you'd be a losing player. It's as simple as that. With the variance that's in the sport. You want to embrace the variance. Well, everyone's like, this is a sure thing. Well, you know it's not a sure thing. You're right. Hitters only produce 30% of the time. But people act as if things are sure things. They get annoyed. They take Mike Trout and he goes 0 for 5 in an Angels 9-run win. And he just so happens to be in the middle of, he's hitting the fucking double plays and shit. The Angels scored 9 runs and Mike Trout has 0 points. Yeah, that's perfectly within the range of outcomes. But people are going, well, Trout's up and he's facing garbage can, some bullshit, thinking that it's inevitable to get your, obviously he's going 4 for 5 with 2 home runs. No, it's not obvious. It's not obvious at all. And he'll hit 2 home runs off of the best pitcher in the league. Some other day, we're like, who could play Trout at 5,100 against fucking Max Scherzer? 2 dongs right out the park. At 8% ownership or some bullshit. That's baseball. But if you're going to treat it like you can predict outcomes easily. Oh, it's Coors Field. Obviously, I'm going to stack the game and they're going to score 14 runs. Fucking look back and see how many runs gets. You see plenty of games that are 3-1. You'll see plenty of games that are 8-6. Plenty of runs get scored, and it's fucking pinch hitters. Fucking the starting pitchers did well up to the 5th inning in the bottom of the order because it's not even the team. Yeah, yay! The Cardinals came into Coors Field and scored 10 runs, and it just so happened to be Colton Wong's 3 fucking home runs. And you don't have him in your stack, so what the fuck did it matter? So it's also that. That's why I read shit. I read shit from all the sites. I read all the content I can to figure out where the fucking herd's going. In a sport that is so high variance that people act like, oh, this is the obviously best play, things become consensus. I'm like, how could you have a consensus over a sport that fucking anything, someone hits a barrel out 394 yards, gets caught, and that could have been a home run some other time. Oh, well, just not today. It's fucking ridiculous. So play the percentages on the other side. And it doesn't mean you have to play all 3% players. And it doesn't mean you fade the chalk. Just like the other night, I had plenty of the Cubs. I was over-owned on the Cubs even. It was a 6-game slate, so there weren't many good choices. So like Chris Bryant, I had 60% Chris Bryant. I had fucking 60% Anthony Rizzo. I had 60%, but I also had 50% Moustakas. I had 40% Travis Shaw, and then 30% on like fucking every Dodger. So like a third of my lineups, 35 to 40% of my lineups were Dodger stacks. But in combination with Cubs and Brewers and some Red Sox. I identified that's where I'm going to go. And if the Dodgers scored no runs, well, those fucking lineups are dead. On to the next day. And if the Cubs go nuts, I still got the Cubs. Choosing stuff based, but that's to me, that's what your decision making is. Your decision making is not who's hitting the home run today, who's scoring the touchdown today, who's going to get tennis to get a triple double. Who's going to shoot 10 for 12 from 3-point line? Who knows? I know who's more likely to. Is it going to be today? I don't fucking know. Well, this guy throws a slider and this guy, what does that matter? What does any of that matter? There's so much variance that you could say that, he's more likely to hit his hanging curveball. More likely is 0.2%. Okay, you just spent a half an hour looking that up for 0.2% difference. In a sport where the range of outcomes is like fucking 75 to 80%. Understand that. Median projection of 8. Within standard variance, a median projection of 8 can mean 2 to 14. So if anywhere between 2 and 14, the median projection is correct. Okay, so what does the projection mean for anyone then? You're going to say 2 to 14 versus 1 to 13. What's the difference? So now you're looking at 0.2%? What the fuck's the difference when the variance is that wide? If you see a little small and go, okay, I found a little thing over here that's not in the projections. Then you go, okay, maybe I stacked it. Maybe that's good for the ceiling. You go, hey, this guy struggles with control. I typically stack teams against high variance pitchers, not low variance pitchers. But high variance pitcher, you stacking against you, Darvish, no problem. But just understand, if he got his stuff, he got 14. He's going to strike out 14 guys, and your stack's fucked. But he doesn't got his stuff. Maybe you get 10 runs off of him. I mean, like, those are the situations. I'm not going after Clayton Richard. I'm not going after ground ball pitchers, typically. I'm going after fucking guys that either have their stuff or don't got their stuff on a specific day. But that's a type of pitcher. What do I have to look at for that? That's something you should already know. You look, I mean, all you have to do is walk rate, K rate, Sierra, and go, well, this guy's boom or bust. Hopefully today's the bust day. How many people think today's the bust day? Not many people. I'll take a shot that it's a bust. It's a bust day. There you go. That's the secret. You've learned all the secrets. You've learned it all. No stats involved. No fucking, you don't have to do fucking, no Excel spreadsheets or math or nothing. I mean, this is math. These are all mathematical concepts. So you learned it all. You go out and win. Print money. Now you go off and print all the money you want.